what we can expect today. Wake up on KLZ 560. Now, Steve Curtis.
And good morning. Welcome in, everyone. Monday morning edition of Wake Up. 303-477-5600 is the phone number if you'd like to join the conversation this hour. This is a blast. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. In studio with me is Mercury Yaden, a professional wrestler right here out of Denver in the Grudge Training Center out at about 52nd and Sheridan, and been out there a couple of times for the matches and really, really enjoy it. If you're a grandparent or a parent and you want to do something your kids just won't stop talking about, you don't take them to a movie. You go to professional wrestling. My dad did it when I was a kid, and I'll tell you, my kids just love it today. So we'll be talking more with Mercury here in the next half hour. But this first half hour, we'll be talking with a WWE, a TNA, ECW Superstar, the one and only Al Snow. Al, good morning. Welcome into the program.
Good morning.
Hey, it's great.
For having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on this early. I don't know where you are in the country this morning, but it's not very late anywhere. So I certainly appreciate you getting up this early. So much to talk about, and we've only got about 20 minutes with you this morning. So let me just start out. Do you have any idea at all how many matches you've wrestled in over 30 years in professional wrestling?
Oh God, no, not at all.
Yeah.
I don't have. I've only got 10 fingers and 11 toes, so it's not like I can count all that.
Yeah. I was thinking the other night. I was reading your bio online, and of course, I've known of you for I don't know how many years. I think my first exposure to you was ECW is the first time I remember seeing Al Snow, and then of course the WWF, and now in TNA. But your career really has kind of shifted somewhat. You've always done quite a bit of training and helping some of the younger guys coming up, but you're doing an awful lot of that now, and really known as the preeminent trainer of young wrestlers. Is wrestling in good shape today? You see the young guys coming up, and I noticed in the Denver matches a few months ago, I was there sitting ringside, and you were pretty brutal on these guys. And so was Chavo Guerrero, who was also on the card with you. And I just wondered if you feel the need to really toughen these guys up and let them know what's in store if they decide to try to make a career out of this business.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean that with anything, whether it be wrestling, or if you want to be a race car driver, if you want to even if you want to be a disc jockey, there's the dream, the fantasy, the romanticized vision of what it is you want to pursue, and then there's the reality, and these kids, if they're not given a little bit of that reality as they go, the reality is going to smack them in the face, and a lot of times it'll break them, and they'll what could have been potentially a great performer loses their passion for what they want to do, and they take off. They are broken and they
right.
come back.
The business has just got to be as tough as nails. And when someone actually goes to ringside, I remember sitting ringside with my dad as a kid, and that was probably 45 years ago at least, maybe even closer to 50. down at the AWA matches at the Denver Auditorium Arena. And just sitting there and hearing the hitting, the what you don't get on TV. I mean, the physical smacking and hitting, and just the bone crunching brutality of what is professional wrestling really startled me as a kid. But I immediately had a great respect for the guys that did this. Later, when I was in the military, I used to go to the matches out at Block Arena at Pearl Harbor. And just some bloody, brutal matches out there. So, by the time the 80s came around and the WWF got more showy than wrestling, I kind of started to lose interest, and I was so glad to see ECW and really what was going on with WCW at the time to kind of keep wrestling pure and not so much storyline. Were you also kind of glad to see that part of wrestling continue?
Oh yeah, certainly. The thing that a lot of people fail to realize is that wrestling's always been storyline driven. Always. It's just not as sophisticated. It was very black and white, very straightforward stories, very simplistic. But the thing is that wrestling's always will be a mirror of the time and age that it's in and the society it's in. And, the fans have become far more sophisticated. Think about it. I mean, kids, that are 10 and 8 and 10 years old they're far more sophisticated than what we were at 8 and 10 years old.
Right.
Their view of the world's changed. They have the internet. They can access information in a heartbeat. And, it's completely different. So you gotta wrestling has always evolved, and they now tell more sophisticated stories because the audience is more sophisticated.
Sure.
That they can try to get them to relate to it. So, but physically, I mean, it's still very much the same. I mean, it's the misnomer that wrestling itself is fake is the physical part of it. Everybody assumes it's fake is far from the truth. The only thing that's fake is the outcome, which we've all known for, decades. It's not like I'm revealing something to anyone. I certainly hope, but it's a very, the ring's not a mattress or a trampoline. It's a steel frame with 2x10s stretched across it with a little bit of padding, but the padding is really there just to protect your elbows and your knees. And, it's the flex in the ring that kind of saves you a little bit, but it hurts a lot every time you fall. And, the moves and the physicality and all that are quite real. It's what the intent behind it is the only thing that's.
How old were you? I was going to say, how old were you when you decided that this is what you wanted to do for a living?
I honestly, I made that decision when I was 14 years old. But I just knew in my heart that was what I wanted to do, and I obsessed day and night over it, and just wanted to do it more than anything else in the world. I knew I had to. It wasn't a choice. I just felt like I had to be doing that as a performer. Yeah. And it was, I've been doing it. It'll be 34 years in May, and I've never regretted doing it. I've basically been on vacation for 34 years. I've gotten to do what I love to do, go places and see things. And, I'm a kid from a little town out in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, and I would have never gotten even the chance to go out and see how amazing Denver was, how amazing Colorado is, if it hadn't been for being involved in professional wrestling.
I need to take a quick break here, Al. We'll be back in just a moment with Al Snow.
Wanted, you achieved your aim by making the walking lane.
And welcome back. Our guest is Al Snow, extraordinary professional wrestler with a 34-year career. And Al, I just have to ask you, who did you idolize when you grew up?
Oh God, all the old greats, Vic the Bruiser and the Crusher, and of course, Vern Gagne, Mr. Wrestling 2, Bobo Brazil, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair,
Nick Bockwinkel, Billy Robinson.
Nick Bockwinkel. Yeah, Nick Bockwinkel, Billy Robinson. Yeah, I mean, I could go on down.
Same names I came up with last night when I was thinking about this, and all those guys, and of course, many of them have passed, but some of those guys are still around today, and it's good that they are, and that they've survived the brutality all these years. Who was the toughest guy you've ever been in the ring with?
That's hard to just put one. I mean, all the guys are all tough, but of the modern day era, I'd say Bob Holly is probably one of the tougher guys. You know, just shoe leather. You know.
Yeah.
Just he enjoys. He's one of those guys that enjoyed to be physical. And, get physical with you, and when you got physical back with him, he'd laugh and just keep going.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that was certainly his reputation. These days you're training a lot of the younger wrestlers. Is that kind of your? I mean, I imagine it's a decent living, but is it kind of your way of giving back to the sport that you've spent over 3 decades in?
Oh yeah, because. Everybody at some point, everybody starts to kind of go, well, what's my legacy going to be? Or, you kind of think of things like that. And I think, my legacy is, the people that I train, that I try to continue to teach the art of professional wrestling, because professional wrestling really is an art. It's a performance art. It's an art of physical storytelling. And, it's such an amazing thing when you really understand what's being done. And there are things that are intrinsic to it that need to be taught and passed down. And, if those things start to get lost, then the very art itself is going to kind of disappear.
Right. When you come into Denver, for example, you're coming in, what is it, Saturday of this week? Let's see here. I've got it right in front of me here. This Saturday, January 16th, 2 different matches that day, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. And it is not unusual, by the way, for if anybody's wondering, to have a matinee. I remember I used to go down on Sunday afternoons to the Denver Auditorium, and we'd watch wrestling in the afternoons. And this is at the Alamo Drafthouse Cinema, which is that huge complex down at 7301 South Santa Fe Drive in Littleton. So anyone that, and we'll remind you of this a few times during today's show, but anyone that wants to go down and see Al Snow and a bunch of other New Revolution wrestler performers this weekend, it'll be a great time. I don't know which one we'll be at, but it certainly will be one of those. And as you go in, let's say you come into Denver, I've always wondered this. How much, before you wrestle somebody, I mean, do you train with them for a day or a half a day or a couple of sessions or something? Or do you even have that luxury?
No, not at all. Very rarely do I even get the blessing of knowing who I'm going to wrestle until I'm sitting there at the building and they introduce themselves. There have been times in years past, we were in separate locker rooms, and you never knew the guy, never met him, didn't know him until, you walked in the ring and stood across from him. The idea that it's scripted it couldn't be further from the truth. It's think of it more as very loosely scripted. The only thing that's really scripted, the outcome, and then everything else is improv. Everything it's a living, breathing thing that is created with the audience at the time that you're watching it. That's why you could watch the same 2 guys wrestle 100 times in front of the same people, and it would be 100 times different every time because the audience on different days and different nights are going to react to different things at different times for different reasons, and it's not scripted like you sit down.
Right.
You've got a little. For me, it certainly isn't. I don't know what I'm going to do until I get out there.
Right.
And that I love.
I don't know how you guys don't kill each other with the flying around, and I mean huge physical men just, jumping off of the ropes and just flying into the ropes and bouncing off, and suddenly you're lifted up in the air. I really just don't get how you can anticipate what the other guy's going to do if you don't know him. But I guess that's the art of it, and that's the training, isn't it?
Yeah, and you do get killed. I mean, you do get hurt. I mean, there are, I've suffered a lot of different injuries over the years, and some of them pretty severe. And you just get to the point to where you accept that, physical pain is going to be a part of what you do, and and it don't get better as you do it, because every day something hurts. It just aches or throbs, or I feel like if somebody always sneaks in the middle of the night, there's this little elf that sneaks in and just beats me to death with a baseball bat from head to toe.
Mercury Yaden is sitting over here. He kind of chuckled and shook his head yes as as you said that,
yeah.
As if he understands that all too well. The biggest match of your career was what? Any
match that's the biggest would always be wrestling for a world title. And I got the opportunity to wrestle for the world title in ECW, and that was pretty big. That was probably the biggest.
What was that venue that ECW wrestled at? I believe it was in Philadelphia. What was the name of that place?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was down. It was called the Alhambra Arena.
Okay.
And it was down on Packer Ave, and it was originally it was like a bingo hall / where they held boxing events, and then ECW kind of moved in there and became one of those events that they held too, and and then it slowly became nationally known as ECW Arena.
It played well on TV. That just looked like a great place to have a match. There was just so much character. Do you still get into a lot of those old arenas, or are things kind of upgrading and becoming a bit sanitary these days?
Yeah, they're upgrading a lot, but there are still a couple. They're still out there. Those older places that really have that atmosphere about them and that energy about them, and you really, for me, I love going to those buildings. They're it's fantastic.
The amount of time that you've spent in this business is pretty remarkable, and yet we see a lot of guys that have careers this long in such a brutal sport. What is it? Is it the training, or just the way that you guys take care of each other, understanding what it is? I mean, you would not expect to see a professional football player wrestling at or rather, playing football at age 52. They can't do it, and yet, I mean, when I saw you back in August here in Denver, it doesn't look to me like you've missed a beat. So how is it that?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, seriously, you just look, you and Chavo both. I mean, for guys that have been around a long time, really let's just say you were the two best wrestlers in the house by far that night, and there was just no question. So when you go into an area, go into a territory, and you're wrestling, whoever might be the champion of that area, you want to make them look good, because you're trying to give them a bit of a push in their career, and I guess you understand that that's pretty much why you're there, but you're also the draw. You're also the featured guy that everybody came to see that night. So how do you balance that? Because does it ever get to the point where you say, I'm just gonna take this win right now? You don't get that opportunity, do you? Or do you?
Sometimes, if they annoy you, you might want to teach them a lesson.
Well, you kind of looked annoyed when you were in Denver. I just have to say, I actually remarked to my wife, I just said, man, he's really brutal on this guy. You were talking to him. I think you slapped him across the face a couple times. And I remember Chavo yelling at the guy, I'm not going to just give it to you. Get up and work. So.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes you got to motivate them a little bit. They kind of, they kind of, kind of expect it to be kind of handed to them a little bit. So you kind of and you'll give it to them, but they got to earn it.
Right.
They gotta, like everything else, they got to want it.
So how do you?
There's nothing wrong with teaching that.
Yeah, no, there's not. So how do you keep going at age 52? I mean, what's your daily regimen? I mean, is it all kinds of vitamins and supplements and workout?
Yeah, I do take a lot of vitamins. I drink apple cider vinegar morning and night. I take a lot of supplements and things like that, and I train. I mean, I still challenge myself when I go to the gym because it's of course a aesthetic business. It's
right.
It's a visual one, and so I've got to try to compete with these young guys, and I have to look believable and look like I make my living in an athletic and physically active and way, and like I could be in a prize fighter, and it doesn't get easier as you get older, as you know. I mean, I work out 3 times as hard and get only a third as much results, and so it's a lot tougher, but I still love what I do, and I think that's what makes the big difference is that I genuinely love to do what I do.
Yeah. Well, final.
I haven't touched yet, but I've been acting a lot over the last few years, doing a lot of movies, and and actually at this weekend, I'm coming out there because they're showing both times during the day, a movie that I've been that I star in, and called Overtime, and I love to act. I love it, but it's nowhere as amazing for me as it is to get into wrestling ring. And even just getting in a wrestling ring in front of, whether it's 20 people or 200 or 10,000 or 20,000 people, I still enjoy performing when I act, but there's nothing like getting into a wrestling ring and being able to physically act and interact and tell a story and watch it come alive and feel the audience's reaction. And at the time that you're doing it, that immediate gratification, you do a movie, you literally have to wait sometimes a year before the movie comes out to even see if what you've done will play the part and be the piece in the puzzle that tells the story that will get the emotional reaction from an audience that they want. But it's so distant that it's gratifying and it's enjoyable. It's nothing like professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Nothing.
How many, last question, how many years do you think you got left in the ring?
Probably not many more, I don't think. You start asking yourself, well, what am I going to be doing in 5 years? Because, you get the reality hits you that in 5 years, you're going to be 57, Yeah. And that's why I've started acting and, doing things like that is because of, I want to, try and pursue something that I think that I can be as passionate about as what I've been about wrestling, and that's the real trick. The hardest thing for a lot of people, especially athletes, is we have to come to grips with 2 deaths. We have to come to grips with our own mortality as we get older, and that's what everyone does. But it's even harder to come to grips with the death of your career because, it's something you've been so passionate and driven and focused on for so long, and it's become really not just a part of who you are, but who you are.
Right.
And for when it goes away, when it dies, you still have to go on living and trying to, bring that, find something that you can focus on and have that passion and that drive to the same extent as what you've already had. not easy sometimes.
Well, let's here's to Al Snow having a great transition into whatever that next phase is. When you get to that point, you certainly don't look like you're ready to retire anytime soon, and we look forward to seeing you this weekend. So, Al Snow, thank you very much for being on the program this morning.
Well, thank you very much. I do so appreciate you guys giving me the time, and I hope everybody out there comes out and watches some great wrestling and watch a funny and fun movie.
Yeah, it'll be something to really look forward to this weekend. That's Al Snow, professional wrestler extraordinaire. He'll be in town this Saturday at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. at the Alamo Drafthouse Cinema for two great performances of professional wrestling. We'll be back right after this. Our thanks to Al Snow for spending the first half hour with us this morning. Al will be in town this weekend, New Revolution Wrestling at the Alamo Drafthouse Cinema, 7301 South Santa Fe in Littleton, the huge complex down there. They're going to be showing a movie that Al is featured in, and he'll be wrestling on both cards, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. this weekend. So get down there, take the kids, for sure. Take the kids. This really is great and family appropriate entertainment. And didn't want to say it while he was on the air, but back in August when Al Snow was in town and Chavo Guerrero and had a big match out at the Grudge Training Center in Arvada, the only person I think that swore that night was Al Snow. So generally, I think of especially local professional wrestling, very, very family appropriate. Something you really wouldn't hesitate to take the kids to. It's a far, far, far less raunchy than most movies or video games or that kind of thing. And it's live, and it's such a memorable thing. I can still remember being at matches nearly 50 years ago. And so it's just a great thing to do with the family. In studio with me is Mercury Yaden, and Mercury is a wrestler. And Mercury, how old are you?
34. So I'm the same age as the amount of years that Al Snow's been doing this.
Wow. So he was wrestling when you were born.
Yes.
Wow.
Sounds like he started the year I was born.
Yeah, does sound that way. So you've been doing this now how long?
2001, so
about 15 years.
14, 15 years.
Coming up on 15 years. What got you into it?
I met a guy at the mall in Ontario, Ohio. I lived in Mansfield, Ohio, and I was a senior in high school, and I met a guy that worked at the Beanie Wagon kiosk. I was working at a Metabolife kiosk.
Okay,
and
right.
I met a guy that was into professional wrestling, and I'd watched some, but I didn't grow up watching a lot of it, and I knew of it, but I didn't watch a lot, and he asked if I played sports, and I said, yeah, I wrestle and play football and baseball, and he had me come watch a group of his guys that did this professional wrestling thing and kind of got me hooked at that point. So I fell in love with it a little later in my teens than a lot of people that are doing it that you hear that have been passionate about it and loved it since they were 4 or 5 years old.
Right.
I fell in love with it a little bit later, but just as passionate as anybody's been watching it since they can remember. So, yeah, it was an interesting start into it, meeting the guy at the Beanie Wagon. But I'm glad he came up and talked to me. So.
Well, it had to start someplace. So the business of professional wrestling, I think to a lot of people, is still a mystery. So many people remember the era that it became huge back in the 1980s, and the big stadium events and WrestleMania outside in front of 50 or 60,000 people, and the Hulk Hogan era and all that. I of course remember when Hulk Hogan first broke into the AWA years ago, and I think that was his first big push. But when you kind of see those big events, and then you see the reality of where you start in the gym, and the training has got to be just brutal. I would imagine the first few times you got your shoulder cranked on or something, you probably thought, what the heck am I getting myself into?
You know what? Honestly, I'm not smart enough to think what the heck have I gotten myself into. Just kind of rolled with it. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize what it it entails, what it takes. Like I said, that kind of mystery of what it is, and it's something that takes just as much dedication, emotionally, mentally, physically, as anything that at least I've ever done, and anybody that pursues anything professionally would have to undertake to succeed in what they're doing. So it's very demanding, but it's very rewarding. I mean, of all the things that I've done, it's definitely the most rewarding activity and now career that I could hope to be a part of. So I'm very blessed and fortunate that when I was getting cranked on for the first time, it didn't scare me off, that I decided to keep pushing forward, and here we are now. Yeah,
15 years later. The pay. Let's talk about what's the lowest you ever got paid, the least amount you ever got paid for a match?
The least amount?
The least amount.
After all the expenses, probably negative something. It's fighting your way through the lean times and being willing to do it for the pure love of it, and then the hope of turning it into actually a career that you can sustain yourself on. So pretty much nothing. I mean, it's after you factor in what you spend to do it, and the time in the gym and the gear and the travel and the gas and the food, right, to get wherever you're going. It's definitely something that I did not do for the money in the beginning, and it's something that when you don't do it for the money and you perform for the love of it, when things do start to turn into a career for you and you start generating a living out of it, it makes it that much better because you know that you're doing it because you love it, not for the money. So
right,
it's quite nice when it actually turns into something.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I've been thinking lately, it seems like there's a resurgence of professional wrestling. There's smaller promotions kind of all over the country now, and even Denver has a couple of them. And is it really did mixed martial arts and everybody wanting to get into MMA, did that kind of help bring a revitalization of wrestling as well, or did they just kind of grow simultaneously? Because it seemed for a while that wrestling was just going, well, if Vince McMahon had had his way, there would have been one promotion. It looks like, and it looked like after he bought up WCW, and we know what happened with the AWA, if you've read the history of how that kind of got folded in. And it really looked for a while like there was going to be one outlet for professional wrestling. But here in Denver, we've got New Revolution Wrestling, which you started in 2010. How did you get to the point where you could actually start your own promotion?
I guess I just took a leap. I mean, it was something that I decided that I didn't really like the status of professional wrestling in this state. So I was one of those like, well, I think I can do it better. So I took a leap and tried, and through trial and tribulation, have been able to keep it rolling and make it work. And I credit a lot of the success of the company itself to my time with Al Snow in Nashville, because he taught me pretty much everything I know to operate now and keep it moving. But as far as wrestling and growing and MMA, they're really not the same. They're not the same industry, but they share a lot of the same traits. And by that, I mean the performance part of it and the entertainment part of it. It's all entertainment. So maybe there's some crossover. Maybe there's some one helped the other or one hurt the other. And I don't really know. I can't really give you an educated opinion on what I think affected. I do know that people are interested in characters. They're interested in people to hate. They're interested in people to love. And that goes across sports. And if you look, and I'm not a huge MMA guy, we train the Mercury Pro Wrestling Academy is in an MMA facility, so I've been able to learn a lot about some of those right. guys and kind of that world being there. And you learn that we do share a lot of things. But if you look at examples such as Conor McGregor in MMA and kind of what has put him to the forefront, it's this character that he portrays. It's right. He's larger than life, and he puts it out there. He says whatever he wants. And I knew who he was without even really watching MMA because so many people talk about it. So that's what we share, I think, more than anything. And when that's interesting and you can create this interesting atmosphere for fans, then people are going to gravitate towards that, whether it's pro wrestling, whether it's football, whether it's baseball, whether it's MMA. So I think that people want to be entertained, and they want more avenues to be entertained. That's why there's 600 plus channels when you get cable now, and everybody's constantly clicking to see what emotionally charges them. And I think that the people that figure that out are the ones that get the eyeballs on them. And it seems to me locally, a lot of people kind of want that local interaction like you did when you came in August.
Right.
And if we can entertain you and emotionally invest you and your children and get them to be interested, like you were telling me the story about the barricade and the kids going, do they know we're small? They're coming over here.
Yeah.
But they're now like they're paying attention. That's the key, and that's what we're going to keep striving to do.
Well, it's kids like superheroes, and in professional wrestling, the one locally that we get such a kick out of course, is what's his name, Captain Beefcake.
Oh, Dr. Beefcake.
Dr. Beefcake.
Yeah.
Just a hilarious character. But we were at the matches. Now, this was not the August match. This is one after that, and we were sitting ringside. And so, one of the guys comes flying out of the ring right into the barricade and just smashing, literally about a foot from my 11-year-old daughter and her little friend. And the little girl just looks at me, and her eyes are huge, and she says, "Do they know that we're sitting here and that we're little?" And I said, "Yeah, they know. Don't worry. They won't come flying into you and hurt you." She wasn't quite sure the first time, but they really, really get a charge out of it. And kids will become lifelong wrestling fans if they just go at a young age, because it is generally very, very clean family entertainment. And to see those good versus evil matches, it's really better than a movie. It's right there, and it's in real life, and you just get a charge out of it. We need to take one final break here. We'll be back in just a minute with Mercury Yaden. Welcome back to this final segment with Mercury Yaden. We've been talking professional wrestling at a local level this first hour with both Al Snow and Mercury, who's in the studio with me. Coming up at 7 o'clock this morning, Dr. Charles Corey from the Equal Justice Foundation, talking about the impact and ideology of neo-Marxist radical feminists on issues like domestic violence, dysfunctional family courts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So completely different topic. Tomorrow, Peter Brimelow from VDare.com on immigration in the wake of San Bernardino, Philadelphia, and Paris. So those great topics coming up. But right now, 7 or 8 more minutes with Mercury Yaden here, talking about the NRW New Revolution Wrestling live shows coming up this Friday, and I rather Saturday, January 16th, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. at the Alamo Drafthouse Cinema, 7301 South Santa Fe in Littleton, featuring Al Snow this weekend. So if you want to see some great top-notch wrestling, get out there this weekend and see those. Now, if you can't make it this weekend, back at the Grudge Training Center in Arvada following week on January 23rd, 6 p.m., and then 7:30 p.m. on the 30th, or rather the 29th, up at the Pacific Event Center on Main Street in downtown Longmont. So all that coming up, and so let's just talk about how your career evolved. You first started in Ohio, and you said you met this guy in the mall. What promotion was that?
That was NRW.
NRW.
That was the name of it was No Rules Wrestling out there, and I met them, and it was very, very raw, very unrefined, and we toyed around with it for a little bit. It wasn't the best way to get in. It's not the right way to get in the way that I initially kind of came in. But we wrestled for a couple years, and then I kind of got my head screwed on straight, and I found a really good place to train and kind of really learn how to do this correctly. Came out here and trained out here, and that's when I really kind of got moving with it. Trained with a guy named Jeff McAllis. He ran Fusion Pro Wrestling and the Altitude Pro Wrestling Academy, which was around at that time.
Okay.
And that's what really kind of got me moving in the right direction. He was somebody that was a true professional, that was in the industry, that was trained by the right people, trained by good people, quality people, and around true professionals, and that kind of rubbed off on me. And then that's kind of where I took my current direction.
Okay. So then did you hook up with Al Snow and get into the TNA program?
Well, as I was doing it for the several years, just what I was doing wasn't really getting me anywhere. So I decided to take kind of a different route. I changed my major in college to allow me to apply for internships, such as the one I applied for at TNA. So I applied for an internship there, and it happened to be in the department that Al Snow was in. So I applied for that, and at the same time, I went to Bakersfield, California, did a TNA gut check, which was one of the kind of tryouts that they do before their live events.
Okay.
So I was trying to kind of get myself seen by any means necessary, to steal a phrase from a good friend of mine, and that led to Al calling me from the gut check, but then also seeing that I was applying for an internship. So I was just kind of coming from all angles, got an internship in Nashville. So I went to Nashville for the 3 months for the internship. That turned into a job opportunity in the offices there as a talent relations and production and travel services manager, working underneath Al Snow and Bob Ryder. And I was there for a year, and I got to learn a lot from him at the time that I was there. Was able to wrestle a little bit for NWA, Saw out there, and some other local promotions. Ohio Valley Wrestling in Louisville, I was able to get down and do some of that, which was the then TNA developmental territory. Okay. And then I came back here and took what I learned from Al Snow and everybody around TNA and applied it to what I'm doing, and that's kind of where we are now with NRW and the Mercury Pro Wrestling Academy.
Okay. And NRW's champ, is it still Hoodlum?
Hoodlum's still a champion. Okay. And he took it from Stefan Lacroix.
That's right.
When you were there.
Yep.
And he's a guy that's been with NRW from the beginning. We haven't always seen eye to eye, but he's somebody that's really been a huge part of the success, a guy that really bought into what the company was trying to do and how different we were trying to be. And he's also been a big part of the wrestling school that we run and trying to train people the right way and put the right mentality into them early on so then they can go have successful careers themselves. So,
yeah. Well, certainly a guy that works hard. Another one, Anaya, certainly a crowd favor. Is he still around?
He's still around. He's the one that actually wrestled Al Snow that you said that I was kind of pounding on a little bit. Yeah. Anaya is one of those. He's one of those quality guys that's just a natural athlete. Yeah, he's real good, but he's not just a natural athlete. He's got his head on his shoulders, right? And he's a guy that puts in the time and cares about others, and he's there because he loves wrestling, and he's also there because he cares about people and he wants to see others succeed around him. And he's a group guy. He wants to see the whole group succeed. So he's a quality person to have around. We're very lucky to have him.
How many wrestlers do you have in your stable at this point?
I would say actively on the NRW roster, there's probably 20 to 25 guys and girls. As far as the school, there's over 50 students in the school, so there's always people that we're trying to groom out there at MPWA to kind of get them ready to jump on that roster. But the spots are limited, so people now are in a position to constantly be fighting for position on the shows. So about 20, 25, and with about 30 more trying to get their opportunity.
Sure. Now, your women's champ, is that still, is it Daisy or is it someone else?
It's Angel Trinity.
Angel Trinity, okay.
She's actually a two-state champion. She's a champion. She's the NWA-NRW Lockettes champion, which is our women's division. Mm-hmm. And she's also the UCW Zero champion up in Salt Lake City, Utah. Oh, okay. So she won that last month. So she's doing pretty good for herself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's always a blast to get down there. And I think my little girls were kind of surprised when they saw the girls come out, the women come out to wrestle, and I have a daughter named Daisy, so that of course was a kind of a special thing. So that was the tie-in there. She really liked the fact that there was another Daisy out there wrestling, and she kind of had a mouth on her, so. That wasn't a bad thing at all either. We've got just about a minute left here. The program coming up this weekend. Al mentioned that there'll be a movie, so kind of lay out what the program looks like on Saturday down at the Alamo.
So you're going to see 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. They're the two showings. There's going to be 3 in-theater matches, followed by Q&A with Al Snow and John Wells, who is his co-star. So you'll get the opportunity to ask questions to Al about the movie and wrestling and kind of whatever you might want to ask. And then after that, we will watch his movie Overtime, and that will be at both showings. So it's an interesting movie. It's kind of a sci-fi horror type of type of movie, and it's always fun to watch Al Snow do what Al Snow does. But you're going to get wrestling, you're going to get Q&A, and you're going to get movies all in one at a great location. Alamo is a great place. I love going there whenever I go to see a movie. That's where I try to go, no matter where I am. I'll make the drive down to Alamo. It's a great spot, and we're looking forward to this unique event. This is something we've never tried before. So
yeah, it sounds very interesting, and it sounds like a really good time. So that's 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. this Saturday at the Alamo Theater, and that's 7301 South Santa Fe Drive in Littleton. If you want to see New Revolution Wrestling and a movie and meet Al Snow and ask him questions and all that, you can do all of that this weekend. Mercury Yaden's been my guest. Mercury, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
We'll have you back soon.
Awesome.
All right. We'll be back in just a few minutes with Dr. Charles Corey. Stay tuned.